Hey guys, welcome to the Property Panel Podcast. You got myself, Jalen Hardcastle, here with co-host Josh Story, and today we got special guest Joseph Pike on the show with Pike Electric, so everyone give him a warm welcome. And excuse our voices and our sniffles and stuff this episode, as we're all a little bit under the weather, but we're still bringing you today's latest and
besides me.
Yeah, he'll be sick this time next week.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead and talk about our title sponsors?
Before we dive in, I want to go ahead and thank our title sponsors. Big shout out to Collier Title. If you need deed prep, title work, they do closings and much more. And they're located in Brandenburg, E-Town, and Louisville. And you can give them a call at 270-763-6589 for their Brandenburg and E-Town office. I want to give a big shout out to Supreme Lending, Chad Gooden and Garrett Greenwell over there. They're two great loan officers that we use quite a bit. So if you're trying to get, an FHA loan, a VA loan, conventional loan, or you just have questions about the lending process in general, they're great people to call, and they're located off of North Mulberry Street in E-Town. And then for this week's sponsor, I want to give a big shout out to Country Living Estates, and they're located in Garfield. You can give them a call at 270-594-1000. I think currently, Joe, you guys have 4 lots available. If anyone's trying to, move into a new lot.
Well, just to specify, Country Living Estates is a mobile home park. So, anyways, I've added on to the park. I added 7 more lots on it. Or sorry, 8. 8 more lots on it. I've got 4 of them filled, so now, anyways, that I've personally bought the homes. I'm renovating them, and then I'm going to actually resell them and only charge lot rent, which we can go on farther with that, what I think the pros and cons are to that. Right. But anyways, I got 4 lots available right now, and I think 1 vacant home up there, so.
Yeah, give them a call. If you're looking for a spot, they'll get you covered.
Sorry to cut you off. We do appreciate your weekly ad sponsor. Like you said, give them a call. But if you or anyone wants to also be a sponsor on one of our videos, we offer 3 different packages: 100 weekly, 300 monthly, and 3,000 yearly. Gives you a little discount if you want to, get the most bang for your buck. But that's advertised on our intros, outros, as well as our intermissions. And now I think we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and now this week we just started TikTok, and it's already starting off pretty well, I think. Yeah,
we just started putting out our shorts. So expect that on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. And then we're going to be putting more episodes on Apple Podcasts. So if you just look up Property Panel Podcasts on Apple Podcasts, you should find us. We're still trying to get on Spotify, just having some technical issues. Mm-hmm. But keep an eye out for all that. The shorts, we're trying to take, the best moments from these videos, push them down to 60 seconds with some information on them.
Yeah, they seem to be working out pretty well. And I think you guys enjoy them just as much as our actual full podcast we're bringing you. But as we said earlier, obviously you heard Joe P talk a little bit. He's definitely in the real estate investing side, but he also owns multiple different companies. He's a pretty well established guy in this area. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so pretty much grew up in entrepreneurial style life. Like my mom and dad, they focused hard when they were younger on Pike Electric, and my uncle started that company, and my uncle was one of those, actually my great uncle, I should say, my dad's uncle. And he was one of those guys that kind of hopped in something, do it for a couple years and get burned out. Well, Dad grew up on a farm. Dad didn't want to do farm work. I don't know why, but he just didn't want to do farm work. So whenever his Uncle Johnny, started the electrical business, Dad worked for him. And then Dad graduated in 1974, and in 1976, so Dad would have been, 19 to 20 range, Uncle Johnny decided, hey, I'm going to shut down the business, and Dad said, well, I'll just buy it from you. Mm-hmm. So Dad was somewhere around 19 or 20 years old. He bought the business from Uncle Johnny, and he started expanding onto it. Dad expanded onto the business. At one point, Dad probably had and Dad, for those of that you all don't know, I should refer to him as Leon, because I do most of the time. And anyways, Leon expanded onto the business. He had about 30 employees working for him at one point.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then in 94, when I was just a young little tyke, he had the opportunity to scale down and he took that opportunity, and he never looked back. He loved it ever since then. He said his headaches went down and his profit margin went up. As crazy as it sounds.
All that overhead.
Yep. Yeah. All that overhead, all the business that you didn't, all the employees, as far as not doing the work that you didn't want to be done, the quality of work went down. And whenever he had multiple employees working for him, then, we focus on quality over quantity, which I think more people in their business should. Whatever business you're doing, I feel like focus on quality over quantity and charge a premium price. That's what we're all about in our business. So then, my brother got into it. I got into it somewhere, whenever I was the age of 18 or so. I decided, hey, I'm going to stick with this business. It's a good rolling business. I'm going to stick with it. I could have done anything that I wanted to, but I liked being in a family-owned, operated business. So that's kind of the heating and air electrical side. Now it's just as far as the heating and air electrical portion, it's me, my dad, my brother. We do what we can, and we turn down work all the time, and we stay covered up all the time. I've got a buddy of mine who got in heating and air and electric business, and he talks about, being behind. And I tell him all the time, you'll never get caught up. And I tell him, if you get caught up, that's a bad sign. Right. That means you're not doing stuff right. That means you're doing shitty work or you're being dishonest, one of the two.
Yep.
And
he called it how it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a simple fact about it. You will never get caught up being in the trades industry as long as you do good quality work.
Right.
Simple fact about it.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
So when did you get your start into investing and into flips?
So
like rentals?
That's the other side. So also, I learned that from Dad. I shadowed Dad, Leon, as a young kid all the time. Just watching him, I thought my dad hung the moon. And anyways, but I didn't realize shadowing him, I'd learn different entrepreneurial stuff. So Leon, he bought his first rental house, whatever, I think it was like in 1980-ish or so, and it was a house on a farm. He didn't focus in the rental business that much at that point. Bought a house here and there, him and Mom, I should say. I can't leave Mom out of the factor, Debbie. And anyways, and then, I don't remember what year it was, but they started the mobile home park in Brandenburg, Better Mobile Living. And right now that currently has 67 lots. We're actually going to be expanding onto that this year, looking at expanding another 30 to 50 lots. Anyways, so at that point, Leon and Mom saw another opportunity, like Leon and Debbie saw another opportunity, I should say, like, hey, we can make money work for us and not have to work for money. Right. So, and that's the main thing to investing is make money work for you. And it takes a long time to get there. You don't just jump out of bed and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to, make money work for me. No, it takes, you still got to bust your ass at it.
A lot of scary times.
Yeah, a lot of scary times too. So as far as me getting into it, it's a funny story. My dad was a very aggressive person. I'm a very aggressive person. My brother's a very aggressive person. So whenever I was a junior in high school, there was a house for sale. I came home from school, here all my buddies, they were buying nice four-wheelers and the newer trucks and all this. And I had my 94 Jeep Wrangler, which I loved it. But I thought, I'm going to buy me a cooler truck. And Dad came in that evening and he said, Joseph, I found a house. I found another house, I should say. And I was like, oh, yeah, where's this one at? And he was like, it's, such and such, blah, 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 over on Bland Street. I was like, all right. And he was like, you're going to buy it. He said, I made the deal on it and you're going to buy it. And I was like, but I wanted a new truck. Nope, you're going to buy this house. So he said, I'll co-sign for you. And you're going to buy this house. So I was a junior in high school when I bought my first investment property. It still didn't click with me at that point. I bought a house here and there. I was buying mainly for rentals. My early 20s, like every other 20-year-old, wanted to party more. And, I'd work my ass off throughout the week on everything, but come weekends, I'd party my ass off.
Right.
And my early 20s. And it was somewhere around my mid-20s that I started realizing, all right, let's forget your early 20s and let's really start investing with, Pike Electric, growing, making certain investments in that company and also my real estate company.
Right.
And so it was somewhere around my, I would say, mid-20s where I started really branching out and doing a lot more. And I should say that Pike Electric is still small, but real estate-wise has grown quite a bit.
Yeah, you've used that as kind of like a crutch to fund all these other projects in a sense. Do
Yep.
you ever use the business as leverage to buy different properties or rentals or anything like that?
Yes, we do.
I guess your portfolio is so large now, you probably use mostly just different properties.
Yeah, we use different properties, but also, sometimes if one property, instead of using a bank,
Mm-hmm.
if one entity needs to purchase something and the other entity has the money, well, even though we're all I own my separate stuff, my brother owns his separate stuff, Debbie and Leon owns their separate stuff, but also we're partnership together.
Right.
And so let's say if Joe P. Reynolds had the money and Pike Reynolds, whereas we're all in congregation together, let's say if Joe P. Reynolds had the money and Pike Reynolds didn't at the time, instead of going through a bank, Joe P. Reynolds will go ahead and loan the money. Okay. That way, we're kind of keeping it all in-house.
Right. That's nice. That's good to have that
smart
resource.
Yeah.
A lot of people are tripping over that aspect, but obviously, like you said, it wasn't just, let me flip a switch and it built overnight. You had a long, lengthy process with the help of family, I guess.
Yep.
But you had to be willing to grind, like
yep.
you said. Them other 20-year-olds, they're sitting there, wanting a new truck or wanting a new toy. I know I was about 18 when I stopped racing motocross, and still this day, 5-6 years later, people are asking me, like, you still ride? You still do this? And I got a brand new bike sitting in the garage, and I'm like, man, I don't get to it. And they're like, oh, that's lame, you're lame. And I'm like, well, I really want to, help my family, spend time with my family, one, as well as, build my investments so later down the road I can enjoy my life,
Yeah.
A little more anyways.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's what it's all about. People think, and I hate it because I ain't going to lie, people think because I grew up in a business, they're like, oh, you just got stuff handed to you and blah, blah, blah. Well, no, I didn't. And I'll give you all a perfect example. Not only did I have to buy that house my junior year, but mom and dad, they bought me Christmas stuff and all that, like the normal kid, but large items they did not buy me. Mm-hmm. My first car, they didn't buy me. I had to buy that, which I worked my butt off for it. But even better than that, in third grade, I remember this like it was yesterday.
I think I know this story.
Yeah, in third grade, I went over to a buddy's house and he had a go-kart.
Yep.
And we were riding this go-kart around, everything about it. And I came back home and I told Dad, I said, Dad, I want a go-kart. He said, I think that would be good for you, son. He said, I know where there's 2 at for sale right now. I was like, all right, let's go buy it. He said, oh, no. There's no let's go buy it. He said, you're going to buy them. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, Rick Myers has them for sale. Shout out to Rick Myers that helped me out on this. And he said, Rick Myers has them both for sale for $150. And I said, but I don't have $150. I said, I got $100. He was like, we'll work out something with Rick. So we went over to Rick Myers' house, talked to him. And what Rick did that night was floated me a loan for the other $50. So I was making payments to Rick in third grade. Well, then I fixed up this other go-kart and I sold it to a buddy for $100. And I went and paid Rick and I had an extra $50 left over. And at that point, Dad taught me a very valuable lesson that for a long time it didn't click, but it didn't click through high school. It did some, considering I was buying rental houses then, still wasn't as aggressive as what I was in my mid-20s. But, somewhere around my mid-20s, I really thought of that go-kart scenario. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, you got to make money out here.
Right.
It doesn't get handed to you. You got to work your butt off and make the proper investments to make
Right.
money.
That's right.
That's awesome.
And then you got all those, like, I'm sure you deal with a lot too. We've discussed in a few other episodes, them social media gurus on there that are on there just, you know, you spent your hard-earned money to, you know, to buy these houses and at the right time, risky investments to profit down the road. And then they're getting mad at you for, you know, listing it at market value or renting these houses at market value. And they're like, oh, you know, this landlord should price it to me at what he paid for it. No, that's not the idea of, you know, your investment. So, I think a lot of people get it twisted, but you know, as you can tell, Joe P's been working for it. How old are you now?
36.
36.
Yeah.
So 20-something years. So
Yeah.
over half of his life already, and he's not even done with the other half of his life.
Yeah.
He's been working 20 years at 36 years old. Oh, probably longer than that. Then that's only
Oh yeah.
Yeah, probably, probably like 30 years. This is third grade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like that story of when you were in the third grade and your dad. You had to go buy that go-kart. That's awesome. Kind of getting the...
You know, I look at that all the time. You know, my dad made me work when I was a kid instead of going out and going to the, you know, at that time, instead of the Mike, it was Hillcrest, going out to Hillcrest and hanging out with my friends in the pool. And I used to be mad about it, but now I love it. Like,
Right.
I absolutely loved what Dad did for me. And Dad and Mom both did for me because they instilled a good work ethic in me.
Right.
And you know, now that I have kids, I hope I can do the same thing
That's
with them.
what I say. I can see you're already instilling that in your kids because, you know, we both went and showed Joe P. properties, and he'll bring his kids right with him. And I, like you said, it made a remarkable memory on you. And I remember going with my mom to doing that same stuff, and it definitely makes a lasting impression. So.
Yeah, it does. And to me, that's not instilled in near enough people anymore. And we can get on with, you know, different issues, but I just don't think there's a good work ethic instilled in a younger generational age anymore.
Right, yeah.
And it should be, because that's how you get started. You know, that's how the gears start rolling, because, you know, just like a kid, you know, if you're arguing with your wife nonstop, well, that kid sees that and they think, well, this is a normal relationship.
Right.
Okay, so if you're involving that kid with a business and work and everything about it, then they think, oh, this is what I got to do.
Normal.
And
That's
also
exactly
not
right.
going out and just buying them that go-kart.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an important lesson.
That's an important
You know,
lesson.
you have to earn what you want.
Mhm.
You know, if you found something that you like, you know, you got to work hard to get that thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great lesson that I think a lot of kids don't get. But that's awesome that you had that opportunity and learned those lessons young. And I think, you know, I see that you do that with like Ellie, and I'm sure you'll do that with Addie. And
I was gonna say I can't do that with Addie right now.
Yeah,
she's 3 weeks old.
We tough to teach her much.
Yeah. Hey, get out of that bassinet and get your ass to work.
But no, that's a little bit on the life of Joe P. You know, obviously he's a hard ass worker, one of the hardest. You know, I'm glad to have him as a mentor in our life, and glad to have him on the show to spill a little bit of his knowledge and a little life inside of him. You know,
and I guess we're gonna go ahead and dive into our topic for today, and that's identifying profitable opportunities. You know, whether it's flipping or rentals. You know, kind of pointing those out, seeing which one, if you find a property on the market, which one, or whether or not you're going to flip it, or if you're going to turn it into a rental and hold it. So, Joe, what do you think are the biggest differences between what you would call a flip house and what you would call a rental?
Man, everybody has their own opinions, their different breakdowns, everything about it. So, what I might tell you, Jay might think, oh, that's stupid. That's the wrong way to look at it. So there's no right or wrong way to the method. The method to me, is no matter what it is, getting your foot in the door, you know, taking that step towards it. Now, excuse me, how I look at a flip to a rental differently is based upon the purchase price. You know, sometimes you can purchase a rental and the numbers, let me back up. When you're looking at it initially, you can look at a rental house and say, okay, the numbers will work at X amount of dollars a month, and 5 or 10 years, this property will be paid off, and then it'll be cash flowing this amount. You know, and a lot of times a house might not work as a rental for that cash flow situation because it might be priced too high. But you can also take that same property, and if it's in a certain location, you can look at it as a resale value. Okay, it's not going to work out as a rental, but I can sink, you know, $30,000 into this piece of property. It's going to add the value to it, you know, another 100,000, and I can turn around and resell it to someone that needs a home, right, and to someone that's looking for a home. That's kind of the way I look at it. You know, is it going to, honestly, my first scenario is it going to work out for a rental? Because I learned something from someone a long time ago. Flips make you rich. Long investments make you wealthy. So long terms, I like more, for the simple fact I'm going to have it from here on until the day I'm dead. Right. And then it's somebody else's problem at that point.
So your rentals, you're not reselling. You're going to keep those.
I plan on keeping those.
Okay. And do you use those rentals as collateral ever for a flip? Like,
yes.
Let's say you find another property. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I hardly ever put anything down on a flip or a rental property. I use, you know, if I have to go to the bank, I use collateral or I use some ulterior method. Because, like I tell people all the time, if I had $20,000 in the account and they were requiring me to put $20,000 on a piece of property, or if I had this house over here that had $20,000 worth of collateral, why would I take my money to put down whenever I could possibly use that money for something else, and I take the collateral over there to use that against the house, against the flip, whatever it is.
Yep.
So when you sell a flip, do you use that money to maybe buy back that or pay off rentals, or do you put that?
Whenever I sell a flip, I pay off stuff.
Pay off stuff.
Yep, I like paying off stuff. Everybody has their own methods, like I said, but I like paying off property for the simple fact, if you've got, let's say if you got a bank, like current interest rates are what, 7 to 8% right now.
Yeah.
So let's say if you got an investment property that is 7 or 8% on interest. If I can pay that interest, if I can pay that piece of property off, that's a guaranteed 7 to 8% interest back on my money.
Right.
So that's the best way you can, you know, that's the best way you can utilize your money. Not go and, you know, put it in a stocks or something like that. Always, if you've got property that's on a loan and you've made money through a flip or something, pay off that other property.
Right.
Get it paid off.
I'm going to go ahead and take that advice.
Yeah, that's
I got
good
flip
advice.
phones and I need to pay it off for rental one too. Come on.
Let's see. How do you?
So, sorry to interrupt. I just, something popped in my head. So, whenever, you know, I know typically, I don't know what your notes are on, but regardless, you try and pay them off in 5 years. Is that about right for you?
Somewhere. So, I'll tell you how I started looking at first rental property. The first house that I looked at that Dad told me about, I was like, well, how do I do the numbers on this? And this is very basic. You know, you can break it down just like we'll get in. Sorry for hitting the mic, but I see on your all's notes we're going to get into cap rate, return on investment, everything about it.
You can go ahead and talk about it if you
want
to. You know,
run wild.
fits with it.
Well, the very first way that I ever looked at property, right now, like I said, we're at 7 to 8% interest rate. Dad told me a long time ago on my first house, he said, look at that. Let's say if the property is $150,000 that you're buying. And he said, figure up if it can make its own payments at 10% interest rates and pay itself off in 10 years.
I got you.
So the reason why I say 10% interest rates is because he saw a point whenever interest rates were 18 and 22% interest. Right. And 10% is a good average rule of thumb. You know, there in 2020, we saw 2% interest rates, which we'll probably never see again. Right. And, the happy median is somewhere around 5 and 6% interest rates. Everybody's happy. The selling market's happy. The buying market's happy. Everybody is happy at that point. So he said figure it a little bit high, which 10% is a little bit high, but it's not as high as what it can be.
Right.
And for years, that's how I bought my property was, okay. And I had a book that was an amortization loan book. It's a little bitty orange book. Yeah. And I'd flip it open, okay, before we had the world of cell phones where you can just type it in. And I'd flip that book open and be like, okay, this house is going to cost me $67,000. Payments are $850 a month at 10% for 10 years, and I could probably charge rent at $1,000 a month. Okay, yeah, this will work. So that's an easy way to do it. Yeah, now whenever you get into larger stuff, to me, you don't just want to go by that. Whenever you start looking at apartment complexes, mobile home parks, etc., you don't want to just go by that.
Right.
Still yet, do I? Yes, I do.
Right.
That's the first thing I look at, 100%, whether I want to go with it any farther or not.
Right.
And then I start basing my numbers from there at that point.
I got you. So that's, like you said, a rule of thumb, and then I guess before you want to take a look at it, and then that kind of decides if you want to set foot on the property, which I think my mom, which I know y'all invest together and with each other a lot, but that's kind of her rule of thumb too, that 10% mark.
Yeah.
And I think that, now, but another question I was going to have is, now that you've seen the interest rates go up a little bit, and, like your dad had seen it at some point, Marty talked to me, he was buying, his first property, I think it was at 16% back in the day. Now the interest rates are getting a little higher, would you maybe recommend, adjusting it to 12% or something?
Yeah, you can. Maybe even 15%.
Maybe 15.
But as the interest rates raise, it's everything's right now is like, what's getting ready to happen? What's going to happen? What are we going to see?
Yep.
I see this year that our interest rates are going to lower from what I've read, everything about it. Plus, I ain't going to lie, it's an election year. You're going to see your interest rates go down in election year. Yeah. It happens. Right. So I think our interest rates are going to drop. Will they go up after that? I don't know. Will I factor my numbers different? Absolutely, because I've got to make the numbers work. Because if I can't make the numbers work, guess what? The bank ain't going to be like, well, sorry, you didn't make those numbers work. We'll let you slide on this one. All the rest of your properties you done well at. Yeah. But yes, you have to adjust your numbers at that point.
Okay, that's a good idea. And that covers that for me. That was a few questions that I had. Just for personal knowledge, but I'm sure the viewers would appreciate that as well. Hopefully they're tuning in. And like I said, on TikTok, we posted that one just a little short, and within the first hour, it already reached almost 1,000 people.
Oh,
so,
wow.
I don't know how it started to pop off like that, but we're going to be posting on TikTok about 3 times a day. I think we're going to have some good insights from this one as well.
Oh, yeah.
And this is going to be very informational. Joe P, you're not only teaching the viewers, you're teaching us, I think, live time. So.
Trying to keep up.
I need to get out my notebook.
Yeah. From there, I don't know where to go, but I'm going to go to flips.
Yeah.
What are some of the holding costs with flips? From the time that you acquire it to the time that it's sold. What are some of those in between holding costs that some of these people should expect if they're wanting to flip?
A lot of it is going to be
unexpected holding costs.
Yeah, unexpected holding costs. So, a lot of the unexpected holding costs is whenever you go in and look at a flip, you got an idea of what you're going to get into.
Right.
But not always 100%. So more of the unexpected holding costs that I should say is what wound up happening on this flip. Did everything go as planned? Or did you run in some issues? Did you run in some septic tank / lateral line issues that you didn't expect? So then you have extra expenses out for that. Not only do you have extra expenses out for that, but you have extra time out for that, which is accruing interest on it. I'm sure Jalen and you do it the same way on your flips. I do a construction loan flip, whereas I only pay interest only. It's for a year's time. And then at that year, it's either due all at once, or I can drag it out for another year. Most time on all my flips, I have them fixed up, done, over with, and sold within that year's time. But the unexpected cost is what is the not knowing of the situation. You know, there's always something in there that you don't know about. And whenever I analyze a flip, you know, I'll break it down, you know, floor this much per square foot, electric is going to cost this much, paint is going to cost, you know, X amount per square foot, roofing is going to cost this much. And then always at the end of what all I just figured, I throw on an extra $5,000 for miscellaneous. What's in the not knowing of the situation? Because you cannot guess it perfectly. Absolutely can't.
And so if you're new to flips, how do you come up with these repair costs? Because I've seen you, when we're looking at a prospective property, walk around and take all these notes, and then you come up with your repair value or your estimate. If you're new, what's the best way to go about that?
I'll tell you, if you're new to the 5,000 rule,
okay,
all right, walk in a house, drywall work, $5,000. Paint work, $5,000. Flooring, $5,000. Heating and air, $5,000. Plumbing work, $5,000. And I say that $5,000 mark because, you know, that's if you're new.
You don't know what anything costs.
You don't know what anything costs, but that $5,000 can get you roughly. Like
never heard of that. I feel like that would get you pretty roughly. What you're talking about.
The paint, you know, might cost $3,000. You know, paint around here goes for about $2.50 a square foot to be painted.
Right.
You know, somewhere on if it's a bigger house, about $3 a square foot to be painted. But if you factor in that 5,555 here and there, it's going to get you in one. It's going to underestimate in one area and overestimate in another area.
I think that's pretty neat too,
so,
because like you said, a rule of thumb for new investors, that's pretty good.
So
I've never heard of that.
Whenever I go in a house, and this is whenever I started off, you know, when I went in a house, I would write down everything that needed to be done. All right, and I would just 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. And it always got me close. Now I can break them down way better than that.
I've seen you a wizard at it. I mean, I went with, I think, Josh one time. He's FaceTiming you or something, and he was like, yep, I'm good. Like, within 10 minutes, and already had it almost to a T on what the repair value was going to cost. I was like, hell yeah.
Quick with it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I've never heard of that rule. I guess another thing, too, if you don't know, if you either choose that rule or, you know, talk to someone who's already an investor or maybe a realtor that has invested, for some advice if you're wanting to flip a home.
You know, I've heard some people say, well, if you want to update all new, it's you know, gonna cost, I don't know, I'm just gonna pull a number out of my butt, $30 a square foot and blah blah blah. Well, you know, I don't know. I've never broke it down that way. I probably should, but I know well enough now what flooring costs, what it costs per square foot, what it costs for someone to lay the flooring, what it paint costs a square foot, how much electric is going to be, obviously. And, yeah. So, you know, heating and air wise, I know to a T what that stuff is going to cost.
You do your own HVAC and electric work?
And sometimes and sometimes not.
Hire it out sometimes?
Yeah, I hire it out sometimes.
Still through the company or through?
No, if we're extremely swamped with Pike Electric, I'll hire it out to a different company. Yeah.
You know, keeping everyone running.
Yep.
I'm sure it's local business.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Probably a good thing to know, too. You know if it's done right or wrong.
Yeah.
You can inspect it yourself.
And that goes to show, I think we kind of touched a little bit on an episode before, like, you know, a lot of people are, you know, like fighting, trying to like tussle at the bottom, but once you get actually at the top, you know, of your profession and actually doing the best you can, everyone's, you know, trying to collaborate. It's not necessarily we're battling. Let's service everyone the best we can.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in our community, I think that's necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
I think it's better when everybody's kind of working together, especially, you know, at these levels where you're doing these investments. It really does just help everybody, you know, at the end of the day. And so it's good to make those relationships, I think. You know,
it's good to hear that even, you know, someone that is a top investor, owns his own company, is not, you know, too shy to steer away from using other companies too. You want everyone to grow around you.
Exactly, and that's what I tell people all the time. Not only do I want to be in good business, a good quality business, but I want other customers of mine, or excuse me, I want other competition to be in a good quality business as well. Because when we all have that same quality of work, we're all pushing for the same standards.
Right.
I agree.
I like that. Yep.
I like that a lot. Jinx. Oh, yeah. That's a good one. What did you have any other questions about the flip or before we go into intermission?
Not off the top right now. Maybe when we come back.
Okay. You wanna? Yeah. We'll discuss on this short intermission. You wanna go ahead and give a thanks to our title sponsors?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to that and go ahead and thank our title sponsors for this episode. Big shout out to Collier Title. If you need deed prep, title work, closings, and more, they're located in Brandenburg, E-Town, and Louisville. And you can call them at 270-763-6589. And then I want to give a big shout out to Supreme Lending, Chad Gooden and Garrett Greenwell. If you need FHA, VA, conventional loans, or if you just have any questions on lending, give them a call. And they're located off of North Mulberry Street in E-Town. And then for this week's sponsor, I want to give a big shout out to Country Living Estates. They're located in Garfield, and you can call them at 270-594-1000.
guys, welcome back to the Property Panel Podcast. You got myself, Jalen Hardcastle, here with co-host Josh Story, and we got special goat. He is the goat at what he does. No, special guest Joseph Pike on the show. We appreciate you coming on.
No problem, man.
The information so far. And as we left off, we were talking about flips. Anything else you guys would like to touch on before?
So on the whole flip scenario, a lot of people mistake analyzing a flip as far as the resale value of it. So they think, oh, if I put, granite countertops and fancy faucets and this and that, if I sink $400,000 into this flip, then I'm going to be able to sell it for a crazy, value.
Uh-huh.
That's not the way the houses work.
Yeah.
So you have to analyze the area that you're in, and yes, you got to fix it up and fix it up properly for the buyer that's buying it. Fix it up, everything that needs to be fixed up on it. And yes, you can put in granite countertops. Yes, you can put in different it's like eccentric stuff.
Those top of the line finishes, I think, in my opinion, they're going to help them sell quicker. Maybe, potentially they're going to look better, but they're not going to make that price go up very much.
Yeah, but the way that you make money is on the purchase, not on the sale. So you have to. What I do is I have Josh here, my realtor, run some comps. Hey, I'll send him a list of homes that I'm looking at. Hey, what will these resell at? And then I go at it from there. I'm minus the commission rate, what you all are going to get off of the sale. Then I subtract what it's going to take to put the money into it to fix it up. Then I add my percentage as far as what I want to make off of this flip. And then I figure out my purchase price off of that point. Because the deal is made off the purchase, not off the sale. Right. And a lot of people get that wrong.
That's good.
Way to
look at it.
I actually had a flip this past year that I went into it with a partner. Basically, he had it through a family member, and he asked me if I wanted to go into it with him. He'd never done a flip before, and he asked me if I wanted to go into it with him, and we didn't make a lot of money off the flip. And he said, "What did we do wrong? Like, what could we have added to have made the sale better?" I said, "Nothing." I said, "I made the mistake not asking for a lesser price on the purchase of the property." I said, "That was the fault of mine."
Right.
I was like, because I didn't analyze this property correct, so therefore we didn't get as much as what I was hoping for.
Right. What's your bare minimal percentage you'd like to clear off that?
So I don't go percentage based. I like to be minimum of $20,000 per flip.
Profit.
Gotcha.
Yeah, profit.
And a lot of people mistake what you get at the table versus the actual profit.
Yep.
You got to count in the expenses and stuff. And
Now that's not always, some, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but that's a good average to be at.
That's good.
And, even on the net profit of that, keep in mind, off of a flip, even though you netted that, keep in mind you need to set probably about 10 to 15%, actually more like 15% back in a savings account. That way, whatever taxes eat your ass at the end of the year, because they're going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I remember my first flip that I got. I purchased my home with Tyler actually as a flip, but we lived in it for a couple of years, and we found one right next door, and we bought it, and we sold it. And we didn't really make much, thankfully, but I didn't realize I was going to be taxed on that profit. And I was like, oh, damn, it definitely added up at the end of the year.
and that's the other thing that I like about rentals versus flips. Flips are quick money grab at that point if I'm wanting to use it to pay off something else or whatnot. But whereas rentals, I can depreciate that property over a time frame and write that off in taxes. Whereas
as it's actually appreciated.
Yeah. So whereas a flip, when you sell it, you're going to be taxed 15 to 20% at the end of the year off of that sale.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big chunk too.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to mention too on these flips, so Obviously there's profit involved because you're doing a service, in my opinion, to the community. Because if there weren't investors willing to take these risks, buy these property, put their own money into it, a lot of these properties would just sit and fall apart. And then you would just see your community fall apart as far as the condition of these homes, the prices of homes would go down. So, I think it's a valuable service. So, because I feel like some people get mad, you're making money off these homes.
Definitely underappreciated.
Right. But if that's not there, then, you're going to see a lot of deterioration in your community. So
I have to say on that, there's been numerous of times whenever somebody will, if I'm out of my flip at the time, they'll stop and be like, hey, do you own this house? And I'll be like, yeah. Well, thank you for cleaning this piece of shit up. Yeah. I'm like, no problem.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually had one, so kind of we did the opposite of kind of what you mentioned earlier. You want to get them done quick, but we had one that we was kind of sitting on. It was kind of a buy and hold thing. And we was focused on other properties, had too many at the time, let one slip, and it costed us a little more money. But I actually got a voicemail because we had one of our signs in the yard. It's our We Buy Houses signs. And this lady's like, yeah, you buy houses? She's like, what the fuck are you buying these for? You can't even get this one finished. I was like, lady, it was because we had the windows out of it, which were on back order ever since COVID. It took us 3 months to get windows in, which kind of halted the progress as well. Josh was my partner on that one. But yeah, I would get voicemails because my sign was in the yard and the house looked like shit. And they was like, so that goes to show if you're not actually working on them too, as much as those people might thank you, they're also going to hate you if you're not getting them done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and a lot of people, like Josh said, like you were talking about, a lot of people don't appreciate the factor of it. But luckily, I've been in the situation where they have all appreciated it. And I've been pretty fortunate. Probably for whatever reason, just I get something and I get it done. Right. Whether it's I don't know. Whenever it's windows holding me up. Now there was one time where I had 6 months waiting on windows, but I went ahead and had other work done around that home. Right. The first thing that I do on a flip, the 100% the first thing, it might not be the most important thing, but clean up that outside.
Yeah.
Because everybody notices at that point. Mm-hmm. And you might even get a prospective buyer that's driving by, and you might not sink a whole bunch of money into it and be like, hey, I want to buy this house now, just from the outside cleaning up. Yep. I've sold several like that, just by cleaning the outside up, and somebody drives by and, hey, you want to sell this to me?
We had a crew actually a couple of weeks ago that was supposed to show up to do some more stuff at the house, and they ended up postponing for a day, so we was already there. It's like, hey, let's clean up the rest of this yard. We had already spent a couple of days doing just that, like you had mentioned, but that was a good day to burn some stuff and to get the property cleaned up. And we've actually, the house next to it actually got listed, so we've been having, and actually a house right down the road has been listed through us as well, so we've been having tons of showings just since we've been fixing it up, cleaning up like you said.
So. Yeah that 100% makes a difference. Just right off the bat, get that outside cleaned up.
I agree, because usually that's the part that looks the worst too, or at least that's the most visual from the road. So like you said, you got them people driving by and they are appreciative when they see that stuff cleaned up. Because people leave it a wreck.
Curb appeal is important. Mm-hmm. It's
absolutely
important for getting people in the door.
Yep.
All right. I guess we'll move on to rentals. Joe, how many, if you don't mind, how many rentals do you have?
If you don't mind.
How many rentals do you all manage, or at least you yourself? And
I can count.
So
and is that
me and my family, as far as total number of units, 200 to 300. I really can't give you an exact number. I tell people all the time that I could stay in a rental once a week for an entire year and still not stay in all the rentals that I have.
That's
so, anyways, so I can't give you an exact number. I've never sat down and counted up the total number of units.
Do you all work together to manage that?
Yeah. So the management, I should say, I've got it broke up into several different scenarios. First off, what me and my family own together, it's all done within the little Pike Electric office. Right. There's a lot that goes on in there. Yeah. Shout out to Mom and Allison, because they are badass at their job of keeping everything straight.
Sweet ladies too.
Yeah.
Anytime I call, they're down to hick
very helpful.
And but not only to help them out, so we do have a couple in Brandenburg here, we do have a couple other people that actually shows the property. That way they don't have to take their time out of the office. So we've got 2 managers inside Brandenburg that shows the property. We've got 2 different maintenance guys for the properties. And then outside of what I have with my family, then I've got established other managers that shows the property, collects rent, advertises the property. So,
which I like that strategy. So one of your mobile home parks that I know about, you have, let's say 20 rentals, but one of those is the manager, and you either give them some sort of deal or pay them to manage that lot. So
that's a great idea.
So the manager lives there, so they see all what's going on, and they can help.
So they care about
so that's the thing. That's what I like about my mobile home parks is, I will find. Yeah, mine's on vibrate, bud. And I'm not even a pro at podcasting.
You heard my voice today. I'm not a pro.
And anyways, so that's what I like. Like mobile home parks, apartments, like a large apartment complex or anything. So I suggest giving a walkthrough at that point before you buy it. And you make through all these notes. You can put an offer on a piece of property, and then, let's say if I'm trying to buy a mobile home park at $1 million, and I'll put a contingency upon walkthrough of the park. So then you get a feel for the people, you get a feel who you want to be there, who you don't want to be there, and also find a manager for the piece of property. Find someone who cares about their unit, who you think is going to stay there. And, just like the managers that I have, what I do is I have them stay there rent-free, and then at the end of the year, I comp them a bonus.
And that's neat.
And so they're
incentive.
Yeah, they're an on-site manager. They take care of the property. Some of these properties I bought under value, and I've cleaned them up, and the manager has helped me do that because they've lived in this location, and they're like, well, I want my property better, obviously.
The one that I was talking about is actually our sponsor today, Country Living Estates. How long has she been manager there?
Ever since got a hold of it, and that was in 2016, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
8 years.
Yeah, and that was a headache park.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. It was.
She took a lot of that off of you.
Yeah, well, not only that, but right off the bat, right off the bat, I think that park originally had 22 homes in it, and right off the bat, I had 10 people that I wanted to get out there just starting off. Because I knew that they were trouble. I knew, they had the law called on them, everything about it. So, as bad as it sounds, yes, they need some place to live. But do I want the headache of it? Absolutely not.
It's not your responsibility
either,
You put those risks for those investments, and like you said, you make those notes ahead of time.
Yeah, and there's other people there that are living at this park that doesn't want the headache of the law being there, them selling drugs, etc.
Yep.
I don't want to put that on the people that want to keep the park nice or my rental property nice, my apartment complex, to have a few bad apples in there that's causing a bad reputation.
Right. Yep.
And how many of those bad apples are needed to kind of mess up the process?
So you can have one bad apple and mess up a process of it.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of times people think, blah, blah, blah. Let me back up. So, perfect scenario. I tell people if they want to get into rental property, don't just buy one house. Why is that? Why do y'all think?
One tenant.
Well, not only that, but if you have one good tenant, that's a great tenant.
Right.
All right? But if you have one bad tenant, that ruins your situation.
Yeah.
So, if you have one bad tenant, and let me go through all my rental property. Right now, I would say 90% of my tenants are good. 90% of them. It's all about the upfront screening, the background checks. I know you all have had Tyler talk about it. And, it's all about that upfront process of it. But every now and then, you can get a bad apple out of it. 10% of that can be bad. But, and that 10% makes you want to pull your hair out, which I don't have much of. And anyways, so as far as that situation, it can take a very small percentage of it to think, why am I doing this?
Right.
I've
met a lot of people who discouraged rentals, but they weren't investors themselves at the time. where I guess they had tried it in the past and they had one or two and just had bad tenants for those one or two, got out of it, and then they talk like it's the worst thing ever, like never get involved in rentals. But then I talk to, investor friends or people who are, successful in that area and they love it. But I feel like one or two bad experiences when you're starting can really discourage a lot of people and get them out of the game.
It can. It really can. Those one or two, because just like I said, if you have one rental house, all right, just one only rental house, and then a tenant goes in there and destroys it. So I'll tell you all a perfect situation.
I was going to ask
the horror stories.
So I had a tenant that, long story short, through COVID and all that, wouldn't get out. And he was found out he was selling drugs, everything about it. My house, he done $30,000 worth of damage on, and demolished the house. So if you have one rental house and one tenant went in there and demolished that house, done $30,000 worth of damage, you are terribly in the hole at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
So that can ruin somebody's experience.
Yeah.
And I kind of had like what you was talking about. Luckily, we had a couple good tenants before, but like you said, there's that 10% that you can't really account for. And we bought one, which it was a shitty house anyways, but we did a little bit of work to it, and we put in one of our newer workers. They needed a place to stay. They couldn't get approved, and we knew the rest of their family figured it would be a good move. He's trying to be nice. And he's like, we'll finish the work up. You just take it off my first month's rent or second month's rent. So we agreed, first 2 months rent paid for. You go in, paint it, and do what needs to be done, because we'd already put new carpet and painted it. So there's very little to be done, but we was like, hey, go ahead, take care of it. Well, it was during COVID too at that time. So it was a nightmare to get people out. So they actually invited people. Not only were they squatting in that house because they didn't do shit to it, they made it a fucking mess. And then they invited their friends to live under the house. They had people living under the house.
Like in the crawl space?
In the crawl space. And the cops, we had to call the cops to get the people out of the crawl space.
I've had squatter situations before. It's a nightmare.
Yeah,
it really can be a nightmare.
We made, I think, like $200 on that house after it was said and done, after it closed, the rentals, the renovations and everything. We had multiple issues with that house, and that was, like you said, we didn't take into account one of those situations. Yeah, that was a real good profit margin there. But some, like you said, some you make a lot, some you make hardly any.
Yeah.
Right. But those tenants, that one bad tenant, made it tough on the other 3 rentals at the time. Luckily, we had good tenants in them, but we had that quota, to hit. And once that tenant was out, we tried to rent it out, but they had done so much damage, and the house was a single wide, so it obviously isn't worth much anyways. We ended up having to sell it for a low price because we couldn't rent it after that.
Yeah.
So you could literally see the ground in the house. It was terrible. I can't believe what these people did to our house in just a couple months. Which we showed pictures, I think, in an episode a couple months ago or a month ago on one of the rentals that we had. But it's crazy what people can do in such a short amount of time for a house.
Yeah, and it's crazy, and it amazes me how someone can, honestly think like, well, you're just making all this money and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to demolish this house. Well, no, I have people that I've got to respond to, I've got banks to pay. I've got this to pay. I've got that to pay. It's not all, no, I'm not making all this crazy, insane amount of money where I'm out just chilling on a yacht.
Yeah, we all wish.
Do you think that those types of tenants would do the same thing if it was their own house? Some of them maybe.
Probably so.
Yeah, some of them just live like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Some of them just live like that. I've been in all sorts of scenarios of situations.
And some of those foreclosures, I'm sure you buy, you're like, how the hell do people live in this? Or they let their family live in it? These people got money like you do, or make them investments, and they're like, oh, I'll let my family, they're too nice sometimes. You always want to give, but, you got to know, like you said, when that line stops, someone's going to take advantage of you.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to pick apart those people, so that's why we got those applications and that that first process in place, so we can try and weed those out.
And the other thing that I don't know if Tyler talked about this, but I have on all of my rental property is there's an application fee. Mm-hmm. If you're not willing to pay that application fee, I don't want you at that point.
I was showing a house, sorry to cut you off, and he was like, yeah, I'm good for it. He was trying to buy a house. He's supposed to get a big settlement in 6 months, and he can just pay off his mortgage. but he had identity theft, a couple years ago, and his credit's shit, and he's about to get it worked out, but the settlements, that's what he's banking on. So I brought him down to this house, and I was like, hey, you want something month to month so you can afford to get a mortgage or pay off this house? And he was like, hey, can we wait till next week before I submit my application? I ain't got the $30. I'm like, if you ain't got $30, we're not renting this house to you.
Exactly.
You got to make 3 times, or at least in our case, I'm sure you, like you said, have about the same principles in case, 3 times the monthly rent to be able to afford that because you got your other bills and
that's exactly right.
And stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a like Jalen just brought up. That's actually a good rule of thumb. If you are looking at a place to rent or looking at a rental for your own to rent out, you need to make somewhere around 3 times the amount of what that place is being rented out for. Yeah,
right.
And to continue to save, so you could buy a house eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe be a landlord at some point in time.
Yeah.
I guess I want to move on to taxes.
No one likes those. I hate Uncle Sam. I just paid him off.
That's a master at it, I feel like.
No, I ain't a master
a little bit
at
about that. I need some master.
Yeah.
You
got some workarounds.
He said he ain't supposed to bring it up.
I set him up. Oh, it's all right. This isn't
So,
live.
Notebooks out.
So as far as taxes, that's a really tough scenario.
Is there a way to kind of get around them?
There are, like Donald Trump said, there are laws into effect to make use of the tax situation to save as much as what you can.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You're not taking advantage. You're making use of those laws.
Tax code.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I'm not just trying to quote Trump, but that was very smart on his situation back in one of the debates. They were like, blah, 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 you're avoiding taxes. He's like, no, I'm not. He said, I'm using the laws that everyone has put in place to pay the least amount of taxes possible.
Right. As you should.
Yeah. And that's what I want to do. I want to use.
Should want to come back to
us, I want to use every law possible because.
Well, no one likes taxes.
There's some people that do.
Some people love taxes.
Yeah. Some people think that it's doing a good deal, but anyways, more than likely it's not. It's being wasted. I could have a whole scenario of that, a whole episode of how that's being wasted. But anyways, so like I tell people all the time, figure out how to save yourself in taxes. That way you can invest back in yourself.
I feel like that's important.
Because
I get eat up on taxes, especially my first few years investing. Like you said, I tried to put out for a savings account, but as I was trying to grow, I was putting my money up when I thought I might sell some a little quicker, and I did, and that kind of put me in a bind when it came down to tax season, my first couple of years, because I was like, I knew there was going to be 20%, but I thought I'd have some other houses closed by then, so I'm trying to learn those ways around that.
It's hard. I still learn every day on taxes. There's a lot smarter people than me that knows taxes. That's why I pay a CPA to do my taxes. Right. So find someone smarter than you on taxes. Now, you might be able to do your taxes yourself and very educated person, but, that's not for me. I can invest my time elsewhere and pay somebody else that job for what they're good at. And there's a lot of stuff that's valuable like that in life. Mm-hmm. What are you good at? Well, figure out what you're good at and then pay somebody else what they're good at.
Right. Yeah.
And
there's a quote from Warren Buffett that says, always hire people that are smarter than you. So if you're running a company, you're obviously going to find someone who knows taxes better than you, or, every part of the business. It's good to have those people surrounding you. So, you can't do everything. You can't be the best at everything. So it's good to surround yourself with those people that know those aspects that you need help with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not a tax wizard. Like I tell people, like a perfect scenario. Today I was dealing with someone at a local bank here, and they were needing some different P&Ls from me and everything about it. She asked me a question. I sent her back in a text. I said, I don't know. I just buy shit. I make the numbers work. I said, I don't know what the answer to your question is right now.
Right. I like that. Hey, like I said, he keeps it real.
I said, you can figure out all the technical stuff. So
that's your job.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you were talking about taxes, Josh. I want to go back to, we kind of skipped over it. Cap rate, net operating income, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's very important to rental property now. So I'm going to ask you all, what do you all know about that?
From what I've kind of came together was the 10 to 12% rule. If I'm not, well, I was actually jumping into return on investment. The cap rate, I actually don't know too much about. Even as much as I invest, you think I know about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty new to that.
So
thanks for making this fucking on our own podcast.
Well, I'm just asking.
No, we appreciate it.
So, and it took me a while to figure out. A lot of people still don't know. I mean, and I tell you how I learned was just by honestly listening to mobile home park podcasts, and I learned from them. But also, as crazy as it sounds, my hobby that I do is I look at P&Ls. I love looking at P&Ls.
Eric's
so
big on those too.
So yeah. Oh, really? So if I get on these commercial real estate websites all the time, and I'm like, hey, there might be a mobile home park, and mobile home parks are just my favorite. We can get into the niche of that if you want, but I might get on, Crexy or LoopNet or 10x.com, whatever the ones are, and I'll sign their waiver agreements and all that, and then I'll be like, I need this P&L. So I'll just study P&Ls.
Right.
All right. So let's go on return on investment. So return on investment is if I spent $500,000 on a piece of property, what is my return on investment by breaking down the yearly amount? What is my return on investment at that point going to be? Somewhere around 20% is nice. I'm going to be honest, with the way the real estate world has been the past couple of years, it's very hard to get a 20% ROI anymore.
Yeah.
So that is gross amount to gross amount. All right? Gross income to what you spend, 100% what you spend on it. Down payment and everything, which, like I said, I don't do a lot of down payments. I do more collateral. So anyways.
More wiggle room now.
Yeah, exactly. That way, if something gets in a pinch, then I've got some money sitting here to get myself out of a pinch. So it's gross to gross. What's gross?
Overall.
Yeah, overall total. Exactly. So that's the overall total at that point. So that is what return on investment is. Like I said, I like 20%. That was good back in the day, but you don't see that as much anymore. You're going to see somewhere around an 18% return on investment. Okay, let's go back to stocks. If you're to invest in stocks, what kind of return on investment are you going to get? Well, most time on an average is about somewhere around a 10% return on investment.
So half.
So once again, I don't know why more people aren't investing in real estate.
And a lot more risk, I feel like, with stock.
Yeah, I should be on here saying, don't invest in real estate. It's terrible, okay? Hear me right now. Don't do it. But secrets. No. Okay, what's cap rate? Cap rate is what you paid for that property. Let's say a mobile home park. Let's say if I paid $500,000 for, and then I broke down all my expenses, and then divided that net operating income. So that's your actual money that you made at the end of the year. I divide that net operating income from the purchase price, and that gives me my cap rate.
I got you.
So back in the day, 10 and 12% cap rates were badass. They were sweet, but we don't see 10 and 12% cap rates right now. We're seeing somewhere around 6 to 8% cap with the inflation of property. Everything that's been inflated, that's about what we're studying. So 10 and 12% were very nice. I love 10 and 12. I do have still some property like that, but do I, like what we were talking about a minute ago, factoring your numbers in today's market, and as competitive as it is, it's hard to find that 10 and 12% cap rate. Most time you're looking for about an 8% cap is what you're looking for.
And that goes to show, as the times get harder, that doesn't mean that you should stop investing. That just, change your numbers. How can I make these numbers work?
Like my dad told me a long time ago, if it doesn't affect your life, it's just numbers on paper.
I like that.
Joe quotes.
Yeah, he has a lot of good ones. Anytime you come in the office, it's like, hey, I heard this once.
Yeah.
And then I go and tell someone else what I heard once from Joe P.
Oh, then I sound like a genius.
I do. I sound like a genius a lot. That's why we're so successful, is because Joe P. He drops the knowledge on our dome. He's like, here you go,
He's a secret sauce.
No, like I said, I got that's why we're recording this. It ain't even for y'all on the podcast. It's for ourselves, so we can go back and, study. It's like the Super Bowl that we got right here. We got the head coach of the Super Bowl that just happened Sunday, and we're like, real estate Super Bowl. Joe P. He's the head coach. We're winning the Super Bowl this year. 2024 is our year.
There's always someone smarter out there.
Oh, there is. And like Josh said,
And, that's the other thing. I ask questions to everybody. Like, before I invest in something, I'll call people that I think is smarter than me. Hey, do you think this is a good investment?
Right.
This is what I think it can do. This is what it's doing right now, yada, yada. Don't just rely on yourself.
Right.
Ask people. Always ask people a second opinion. Mm-hmm. You might find from somebody else, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Yeah. Or, man, if you pass up on this, I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
That's the simple fact about it. Ask somebody else. And, for the most part, somebody's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Well, what if they steal a deal from underneath me? That very rarely happens.
Yeah.
And if that does happen, disconnect yourself from that person.
Yep.
And that person will be known about at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
Yeah.
So that hardly ever happens as far as just talk to other people on investing.
Yep. Yeah, and my mom, she tells me to kind of keep it under wraps. But like you said, I'll open it up to you guys and like Josh and people I trust, because, you do want other people's professional opinion, but at the same time, you don't want these deals scooped up from under you. So you got to make a good educational decision.
Like me, I'm very open about anything that I'm going to invest in. I ask people's opinion, everything about it. But I even go as far as auctions. Whenever I go to auctions to a place, I walk around there and I ask them, Jalen, what are you going to bid up to? I'll tell you what I'm going to bid up to. I'm going to go up to $200,000 on this, and if you're going to beat me, I'm not going to waste your time.
Yeah.
Because if Jalen's going to bid $205,000 and I'm going to bid $200,000, why am I going to waste everybody's time in there to run his bid up? Right. Whenever I know all of a sudden he's going to go up to 205. Right. Because I'll be in and out of there. If I find somebody that's going to be bidding more than me, I'm not even going to waste my time here. I'm headed on out.
Right.
At that point.
And you've done that before. I witnessed that firsthand.
Yeah.
They had me bid on one the other day, and
did y'all win it? I didn't even ask.
We did not.
No.
Was it the bank that bought it back?
No.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it was the. I don't know who it was. It was an older man, but yeah. Yeah, I went out. You told me to go out there and just put our bid up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
It feels good doing that, though.
Oh yeah.
It does feel good.
It does.
I like going up here to those auctions. You're like, yep. And actually, I've been, hate to, like you said, you want to invest, but at the same time, no, you don't, because we want to invest, just as much as you. But I'm trying to get my real estate auctioneer's license, and hopefully be able to do some of those auctions.
That's awesome.
But they only do the test like 2 or 3 times a year. It's not like real estate school. It's
Yeah.
kind of a little bit different. And apparently in Kentucky, there's only 2 places to take it. And, auctioneer companies are kind of tight ship. They don't you have to work under someone for like 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
And no one around here will allow me to work under them. So, I guess for the competing kind of laws or whatever like that. So I have to go all the way to Bowling Green, which I did talk to the dude that actually runs the school down there. I showed a house in Bowling Green to some of my clients, and he was a listing agent. He had let me in because I didn't have access to Supra. He's like, I'll let you, study under me. And I'm like, well, you're 2 hours away. That's kind of a hassle for 6 months.
Right.
So, that's something they look into. They do require you to work under someone for 6 months. Kind of like a home inspector. You would have thought it would have been more like, the real estate schooling, but
right.
I don't know. I do want to do that, though. I feel like that'd be big. And with as much as our company's been growing, I feel like that's been
Oh, yeah.
That would be perfect.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty then.
Alrighty, let's go. Do you have anything else? No. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't.
Nothing else on rentals? I mean, I feel like we could cover all day on rentals.
Oh, we could go all day, but we got to leave room for another episode too, I think.
Yeah, we're hitting an hour and 20.
Yeah, we're hitting an hour and 20, which, like I said, we could go all day, but I think we've hit everything we've needed on this. Basically to recap, buy a home that needs work, live in it, or rent it out for a couple of years, sell that property or leverage more property to buy real estate.
Let's go back to the buying home and live in it for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's actually a good
we didn't cover that.
No,
So
which capital gains comes into play on that, right? Because if you live in it for 2 years, right, you don't have to.
bingo.
2 of the 5.
So
So you 5 years, I think
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you buy a live-in flip, you live in it for several years, 2 of the 5, as Jalen just said, and then you resell it, you don't have to pay taxes at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to grow your wealth. Great way. If you're a single person out there, do it. 100% do it.
I recommend it.
What about like a fourplex? Because you could do the same thing, right?
You can do the same thing on a fourplex. You can buy that as well. Anything a fourplex and under is considered a residential property.
Which we'll talk about next week. We're
So,
going to go over the
so
differences.
when they talk about residential versus commercial, your interest rates, your banking, your your taxes, your insurance, everything is different. So you can also buy an apartment complex as far as a fourplex or less, use that as a residential piece of property, live in it, and have a residential loan on it, which you all will go over with next week.
In which your other 3 tenants would probably
They'd be paying for it. I've done that for a while. I lived in one of my apartments, and I bought a 5-plex, which it wasn't a 4-plex, but I bought a 5-plex, lived in the basement of it. Then when I met your sister, we got a house together. We fixed that one up, sold it, fixed another one up, sold it, fixed another one up, sold it. We've done that a few times.
Right.
So very good way of building your wealth, and if you can put up with the headaches of moving all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're single, I would 100% jump all over that.
Yeah, I recommend it, especially when I did it. So we bought, I think in 2019, but it was before, COVID and the housing market just totally increased. And actually, like I said, me and Tyler bought it together. And whenever we bought the house, I think we bought it at like $90,000, and it was gonna, resell after we moved out of it for around $150,000, $160,000, and there was like, only $5,000 to $10,000 worth of work that needed to be done. So it was gonna profit us, what we wanted to live in there, and both of us make good money. Well, I got married, Tyler had other plans, so we just decided to split up. But I wanted to keep the house as close to my family, so I bought him out at that 140, 150 price range. And, I was salty that I had to pay because I wasn't moving. I thought we bought it planning to make money. But anyways, I bought it from him. Well, 2 years later, I didn't do any more work, and the house ended up going for $200,000, so I ended up, after paying him off, profiting over $100,000 on this house, and then I didn't have to pay the capital gains because I was living in it for 2 years. And then that really kick-started my investment career because, like I said, I could invest into more properties, and then I used those properties as leverage.
That's what the first one that my wife and I done. I was able to pay off 2 apartment complexes, another rental house, and pay off her student debt.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that paid off a lot of our debt, too. I didn't even mention that, but that was the main thing because it paid off all her schooling as well. And then, that was a big help. And it paid off Uncle Sam, which that was when I was kind of tripping, so it worked out perfectly.
I think you get, which don't quote me on this, but I think as far as capital gains, if you live in it for that 2 to 5 years, you get $250,000, I guess, forgiven if you're single, and then it goes up if you're married, so $500,000 up to where you avoid those capital gains tax. So it does, I guess, affect whether or not you're single or married, but it's like $250 and then $500 if you're married. But
all right. See, I wouldn't have known that, but anyways, I would advise it to anybody.
Since a wee lad.
Yeah.
No, but that's all good information. Anything else y'all want to kind of dive into before we kind of sign off and talk about next week?
No, I think we've covered everything.
We want to appreciate and thank Joe P for coming on the show. He had a lot of insightful information to give us. And next week, as it kind of dives in a little deeper to what we're going to be going over. So this week we discovered and kind of talked about identifying profitable opportunities. And then I think next week we're going to be going over, different types of real estate, personal property and stuff like that, and then how to, make the most out of your money.
Yep. Yeah, this is a great episode this week, and
I think it was. I'm very thankful for Joe.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm thankful for you guys having me on.
You I learned so much information on us. As I can only imagine our viewers, they're going to definitely have to act like they're at school or something.
Yeah.
But before we tune off, you want to kind of give a thanks to our title sponsors?
Yeah, let's get into that. So we'll start off with Collier Title. If you need deed prep, title work, closings, and more, they're located in Brandenburg, E-Town, and Louisville, and you can give them a call at 270-763-6589. And then a big shout out to Supreme Lending, Chad Gooden and Garrett Greenwell. They're two great lenders over there at Supreme Lending, and they offer FHA, VA, conventional, and much more. And they're located off of North Mulberry Street in E-Town. And then for this week's sponsor, I want to give a big shout out to Country Living Estates, and they're located in Garfield, and you can give them a call at 270-594-1000.